Good afternoon. Welcome to the fourth and final UNL Bureau of Business Research webinar of the 2023 Spring Series. Today's presentation is sponsored by the Bureau of Business Research within the Department of Economics at the College of Business at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. My name is Mitch Herian. I serve as a project director here at the Bureau. Today we are going to hear from 6 Bureau of Business Research scholars who have been working with us this year. The BBR Scholars program provides undergraduate students with an opportunity to participate in research activities here at the university. Students train in a variety of economic research methods and techniques, collaborate in writing research reports, and present study findings. From time to time, students also have the opportunity to publish their results in various publications. The research presented today has recently been presented at the UNL Undergraduate Research Days. These students have worked hard all year, receiving training in research methods and developing research topics for presentation. The 6 presentations you'll see today are diverse and provide a solid example of the research that students conduct here within the Bureau. Before we begin the presentations today, I would like to point out several features of the webinar. First, one feature of the webinar is a chat window where participants of the webinar today can chat with one another as they wish. We also have a question and answer window where participants can post any questions that they might have for myself or the scholars today. We appreciate any questions that you might have. You can post those at any time, and we will respond to those as they come up. Before we begin the presentation, I'd just like to provide a little bit of an overview of the Scholars Program. The program was established in 2018. Again, it provides undergraduate students with an opportunity to participate in meaningful economic research. Scholars may work on Bureau-sponsored projects or potentially develop their own research agenda. So as many of you know, the Bureau works with many outside organizations on sponsored research. Oftentimes students will sort of piggyback on these research efforts and develop a research project related to something we are working on here at the Bureau for an outside organization. Other times, students develop their own research agenda. They bring their own research interests into the Bureau when they join us. And today's presentations are probably more related to the latter. The students that you'll see today have developed their own research projects outside of anything we are working on with outside organizations. So a lot of creativity and a lot of initiative taken by these students. Mentoring at the BBR is provided by Bureau faculty and staff, as well as senior peers. As much as possible, we also bring in economics faculty to assist in the instruction and mentorship. We currently have 6 BBR scholars in the program. We are in the process of getting ready to hire more for next year, so that number should go up. Historically, this is a little bit of a low number for us. We are in a transition year, and again, that number will go up in the next year or two. So we have 31 alumni of the program at this point. These students, upon graduation, have gone into industry, have worked in various government agencies, and some have gone on to graduate school. In addition to helping us here at the Bureau execute research projects, scholars also participate in a seminar series. Seminar topics include software use, so specifically R is the software we use primarily here at the Bureau. We also use R to visualize data. There's various packages within R. We use R for data analytics, specifically regression techniques. We have a couple of seminars specifically related to regression. And toward the latter part of the year, we focus on presenting results and getting ready for undergraduate research fairs, or what's now called the Research Day. With that, I would like to move on and move to our first presenter, Jessica Chen, who is going to present her work on social capital and innovation in the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Herian. So I'm Jessica Chen, a current junior here at the University of Nebraska, and I looked into social capital measured from social media data and innovation intelligence levels. So the main motivation behind this is to continue to identify factors affecting our economic growth. And as we all know, social media has been playing a more and more prominent role in our society. So the main question here is, do social capital and economic connectivity measured from social media data correlate with innovation levels? So the social media data is pulled from the Social Capital Atlas, which collected data over millions of Facebook users. And from there, they calculated economic connectivity from the Facebook user profiles. The innovation intelligence data is pulled from Stats America, and the main three indicators I pulled out were the patent technology diffusion to measure all the new ideas that are indeed being generated, to average venture capital, because all ideas need money to grow and innovate. And lastly, we need human capital. So I pulled out job growth ratio as well. So just directly looking at all the maps, we see that economic connectivity has a pretty high indicator in the Central America, whereas all the three different innovation intelligence indicators I used have a more spread out and sporadic layout on the US map. And this result is shown more clearly in running the linear regressions upon these. So I ran linear regressions on individual innovation intelligence indicators to the economic connectivity. And all of the correlation coefficient came out to be extremely small, indicating a no correlation. And all the errors have reflected to be an extremely big number to indicate that the models were not good. So although the results that I concluded from this research indicates that there isn't a strong correlation between social media data measuring economic connectivity to innovation levels in the states, I do believe that there's more data research to be done in the area. For example, innovation levels will probably be shown more clearly using data to compare with data on LinkedIn, where people use the sites and the platform to propose ideas, to propose innovation. And it would also probably be a good research to look into all the posts and content of the users rather than just the user profiles, as profiles may be very misleading, and we don't connect with everyone on our user profile connections. So that concludes my research. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we will hear from Victoria Diersen. She did her research on the impact of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act on Native American reservation poverty in the United States.
Hi, my name is Victoria Diersen, and I am a current junior studying economics here. My poster topic explores the impact of legalizing the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act on Native American reservations and whether or not the poverty rates were affected by the presence of a casino. So for some historical background, the IGRA regulates slot machines and lotteries as Class 3 gaming acts, and they are allowed if the states and the tribes create a gaming compact. I chose this topic after reading an article about the 10 most impoverished counties in the United States and realizing that 6 of them are located in my home state and are all Native American reservation counties. To do my research, I used a difference in difference estimator that allowed for a comparison of reservations that added a casino before and after, and this compared them to reservations that have not added a casino. And so I collected data between 1970 and 2020, and the act was passed in 1987. So our biggest impact we see between 1990 and 2000. So on my maps, we can see in red the reservations that have casinos, and in gray the ones without. And we can see that comparison as well off to the right from 1990 to 2000 with the drop in the poverty rates. So overall, my regression results indicated a negative association between casino presence and a reservation's poverty rate, meaning that we see a decreasing relationship with lower poverty rates on the reservations that have casinos.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Next, we have Janana Khattak, who explored citizen contributions to presidential campaigns under economic recession.
Hello, I am Janana. I am a junior and I study political science with minors in economics. So in this research, I was interested in presidential donation patterns and how they might be impacted by people's perceptions of the economy, specifically if our contribution patterns change under times of recession. So specifically, I ask, how does the status of the macroeconomy affect monetary political campaign contributions made by individual citizens? And although only 2% of Americans make annual political campaign contributions, this is still relevant research because we're seeing that money is increasingly intertwined in campaigns. We always knew it was related to politics, but in the past decade, there's been an increase in the number of citizens who make political campaign contributions, showing that more people participate in civics in monetary ways. So when it comes to economic voting, there is one theory that remains dominant, has been proven time and time again, and that is the theory of sociotropic voting. It tells that voters are more likely to reward or favor politicians who they perceive to be better for the macroeconomy, rather than those politicians who might bring benefit to one's own pocketbook. And so with this understanding of the relationship between candidates and economics, there are two potential theories that arise. Either when it comes to presidential elections, as the economy is worsening, or in this research, I operationalized it as employment. As unemployment is going up, it could be that because people have less income themselves or disposable income, they're donating less. Or oppositely, we could see if people truly believe, politicians to bring about an actual economic change, individuals then might make actual contributions instead, believing that they are bringing about some sort of change to the economy indirectly. So in order to do this research, I looked at the 2008 financial crisis and concurrent election. Again, we operationalize the contributions as specifically monthly contributions in quantity, not so much dollar amount. And then I operationalize the campaign donations as the health of the economy as unemployment rates. The timeline for picking up data follows from February of 2007. Both of the candidates announced that they would be running. So I started the data collection from March of 2007, and then I collect until 1 month before the actual election, so October 2008. And what this allows is that because the National Bureau of Economic Research found that, or marks in December of 2007, the recession began, time before that, so March to December, can be used as a sort of control of outside of recession, and time following that tells about behavior during recession. So using ordinary least square regression, we regress contributions over employment. And what I found is that there was a positive relation indicating as unemployment was going up, so too were contributions. So this supports that time-tested sociotropic theory. Also, when we use a dummy variable to compare specifically the time pre-recession to during, that also was not statistically significant, showing people's behaviors were not any different. Though this research is extremely limited because I only choose to observe one election. And if I were to look at more, that might help provide more observations. And also, it's important to recognize that this is all about perceptions, and the consumer sentiment theory is something that might be relevant in the future, because even though pre-December 2007, we were not officially in recession, it might have been something on people's minds. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Janana. Next, we have Laurene Lee, who examined variation in militarized provocations and electoral analysis.
Hello, my name is Lauren, and I'm an economics and political science student. So in my research, I look at variation in militarized provocations. The idea here is that we can observe the frequency and magnitude in which countries engage in militarized provocations varying over time. And so we seek why and when countries utilize the instrument of militarized provocations to achieve their objectives via the empirical example of North Korea through an electoral analysis. So our research question here is, how do South Korean elections affect the probability of North Korean militarized provocations? So again, we theorize that military provocation is an instrumental strategy that countries can employ to achieve desired end goals such as deterrence, signaling resolve, and strengthening negotiating leverage. And we theorize that adversary elections could render the option of provocation more attractive to the provocateur by increasing the probability of payoffs to such behavior via providing them with opportunities to signal their resolve and potentially affect election outcomes. This leads to our two hypotheses, which is one, that as a South Korean election approaches, North Korea will be more likely to engage in a provocation, and two, that as a South Korean inauguration approaches, North Korea will be more likely to engage in provocations. To test these hypotheses, we collected data on all North Korean provocations since the end of the Korean War in 1953 to the current day in 2023, and data on all South Korean elections from 1958 to 2020. We ran a logistic regression to estimate the effects of South Korean election on North Korean provocation patterns. So as a result, we find that North Korea is 4.5% more likely to engage in a provocation if a South Korean election has been held within the past 2 to 3 months, and that North Korea is 5.6% more likely to engage in a militarized provocation if a South Korean election will be held in the upcoming month. Some potential explanations for this is that the 4.5% increase could be due to the fact that there are approximately 2 months between a South Korean election and an inauguration, and so that North Korea may be strategizing its provocation timing to effectively signal its position and resolve to the new leadership. And the 5.6% increase could be that North Korea may be engaging in provocations to potentially affect election or policy outcomes. For future research, additional independent variables that could also be increasing the probability of North Korean provocations, such as US-South Korean joint military exercises and leader statements, could be incorporated into the model, and control variables such as which party was in power at the time a provocation was being made could also be accounted for a more complete analysis. So in conclusion, the regression indicates a positive and statistically significant relationship between a South Korean election and that has been held in the past 2 to 3 months or will be held in the upcoming month and North Korean provocations. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Lauren. Next, we have Reese Munson, who examined fertility rates in women-owned startups in the United States.
Hello, I'm Reese. I am an economics major at the University of Nebraska, and I was interested in looking at the correlation between the proportion of startups in a state that were owned by women and the fertility rate. In this regression, I defined fertility rate as the ratio of children to adults in the state. I incorporated multiple control variables that you can see in those regression results, including the ratio of women to men in a state, the unemployment rate, education level, and a few different state programs and departments. I found that the most significant variable here was going to be if the state had a department focused on women in business. This can be demonstrated through the state of Missouri, which you can see has the highest proportion of startups owned by women. And they also have 3 different departments at the state level focused on women in business. The majority of states have either 0 or 1 of these departments. I found that the ratio of children to adults was approaching significance, signifying a weak negative correlation between the fertility rate and the proportion of women-owned startups in a state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Reese. And finally, we have Juliana Quattrocchi, who examined public transit fare reductions effect on ridership in the United States.
My name is Juliana Quattrocchi. I'm a student studying economics at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. I was interested in looking at public transit fare reduction's effect on ridership. Over the past 15 years, we've largely seen a decline in transit ridership, and that pattern has especially changed since the pandemic happened. In our own town of Lincoln, there was a change where fares were completely eliminated at the start of the pandemic. So that was the genesis of this project. My research question is, how do fare reductions affect public transportation bus ridership? My data came from the National Transportation Database monthly module and from telephone surveys conducted to look at the pricing structure of different public transit agencies. In this event study, I looked at 3 different public transit agencies in Midwestern or Southeastern states, all of mid-size with public universities where there's better data available in public. I did an event study looking at when these fare reductions happened. In one case in Ames, Iowa, in May of 2018, there was a 20% fare reduction, which is the top event study. And then the bottom event study, that's the fare elimination in Lincoln that happened in March of 2020. With this event study, we found with the partial reduction of 20% at the top, there was a statistically significant increase in variance after that policy change happened. However, most of these transit changes are not introduced in isolation. They're generally introduced as a suite of packages, which means that fewer participants in the transit system may see it as becoming more unreliable over time within that short-term period that the event study looked at. And then the second fare elimination event study is when the fares were completely eliminated in Lincoln, with Tallahassee and Ames as the controls in that group. And that is looked at as a percent change to try and adjust for some of the influence of COVID, because that's when these big policy changes happened in many cities all around the country. And there we found that it didn't make a significant change to the overall pattern, but it may have reduced the amount of decline that cities saw around the country as ridership generally declined because of the pandemic. These changes to the fare structure might not be able to revolutionize the amount of transit ridership that's happening. They can mitigate some shocks to the system.
Okay, thank you very much, Juliana. With that concludes our 6 presentations. Again, it was a very diverse collection of research projects this year. Students worked very hard and put together some very good work. So I'd like to thank the students for their work this academic year, as well as for coming to present their research to everyone today. I would also like to point out that these presentations the posters, the slides that you saw today will be posted on the BBR website along with previous year's posters in case you'd like to take a look at those. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions or comments for me, feel free to reach out, and feel free to connect with the BBR using the following social media platforms. Anyone is welcome to answer or ask any questions at this point. I'm not seeing any right now. So I'll wait just a second to see if any questions for our students come through. Again, you can subscribe to the BBR's newsletter by sending your preferred email address to bbr@unl.edu, and Ness will add you to our list. Not seeing any more questions. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today for, again, the final BBR webinar of the academic school year. We will be back at it next year in the fall, where we will present more of our research from the BBR, and we hope that you will join us when we return in the fall. Thank you very much.